just to let you know. It's a windy, rainy, kind of nasty Friday night. But we're going to share with you on the zodiac and the second message that we're doing on Aquarius. And then we'll get into that, which is Uranus, the great Uranus factor of the mighty planet, which is moving to rendezvous with the bride, Gaia. And we'll get into that in more detail next week. And we'll start to share with you some interesting things about yourself and how each one of us are affected by this mighty change that's happening. So it's good to have you aboard, and we'll get right onto it now and share with one another this thing about Aquarius. When we look at Aquarius, I think the important thing to understand, I don't think there's ever been more of a graphic demonstration of a biblical principle which is portrayed in the stars. And of course, knowing that the stars and the signs in the stars were established, say, 3,000 years before Jesus, because they trace themselves to the book of Job, which is 5,400 years old, in which Taurus is mentioned, the Pleiades is mentioned, Mazzaroth, all of these things which refer to the zodiac were mentioned in a book that's almost 6,000 years old. So we're talking of something that certainly predates the Bible and most Western literature as we know it, if not all Western literature. And here we have a picture of the man with a pitcher of water. And what makes it so interesting is that if you look biblically and you look at Luke 22:10, there's where Jesus makes the statement. You'll see a man with a pitcher of water. When you see the man with the pitcher of water, enter into the house, go to the upper room, and he'll show you a large upper room. And of course we understand, or we're putting to you as a premise, that he's not talking about an actual man carrying a pitcher of water down some street in Jerusalem, but he's talking about the age that we're in now and the great rendezvous that takes place as Uranus moves to embrace Gaia, the second coming, the bridegroom meeting the bride, happening in the year 2010, just 19 years from now. So it makes it an extremely interesting thing for us at least to be aware of. You know, and it's not something that anyone has to believe. You can't disbelieve it. Simply because it's a fact, Uranus is going to rendezvous in Aquarius in 2010. That's going to happen. Now, you may find it difficult if, relating it to the Bible, even though Jesus said when you see the man carrying the pitcher of water, but at least you should find it reasonable to discuss it. At least you should find it reasonable to look at it. And actually, Aquarius is the spirit of the new age. You remember the young people a few years ago were congregating in Central Park and they were talking about the harmonic convergence. Well, the harmonic convergence is Aquarius. The Fifth Dimension made their song. I don't know how many years ago they sang that. When the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will cover the planets and love will rule the stars. That's Aquarius. That's what's happening now. So as you sit here or as you sit wherever you may be, in the heavens, all of this is moving into position. And it has a tremendous effect, and so much of its effect has already been seen. That's why people who never even knew what a crystal was are running around with crystals in their pockets. For what? Why all of a sudden? It's part of that movement of the universe which is drawing from within people the understanding and the feeling to be a part of nature, to be in harmony with nature. It's listening to the still small voice that echoes from the stars. I like sometimes, when you get into some of these scientific programs, you're watching some of these guys that sit at Mount Palomar with these tremendous telescopes, and they'll listen for the stars. They'll listen to hear radio waves coming in from way out in galaxies, millions, and you'll hear this, but they're actually listening to sounds that are coming from galaxy millions of years away. Well, the galaxy that you have to listen to is not millions of years away, it's within you. But you still have to listen. Jesus Christ said, knock, and the door shall be open. So you knock. For what are you knocking? You're knocking in order that you may converse or that you may listen to the guru. See? You say, oh, am I the guru? No, I'm not the guru. Where's the guru? The guru's in here. The guru is within you. There is a part of your mind which you have never experienced and which very few people experience, which is the right hemisphere of the brain. The guru dwells in there. That's the place of God. That's why it says in the Bible, cast your net to the right side of the boat. That's why it says in the Bible, they built the temple and they put the door to the holy place on the right side. So in other words, you have accessible to you the 90% of your mind, the 90% of your brain, which you've never used before, and you're learning through this scripture and you're learning through the understanding of New Age teachings how to activate that part of your brain. So then you start thinking with brain cells that you've never thought with before. And you're able to work your ways out of problems. You're able to get your body healed. You're able to get yourself in a position where you can help other people because you're thinking in ways that you never knew how to think before. And it all comes, much of it comes, as a result of opening yourself to the vibrations which are coming from the universe. And they do. You may think, well, how can planets and all of these things that are spinning around in the heavens affect me? But how do they affect the ocean? The moon affects the tides. It does. It's a scientific fact. And you're 80% seawater anyhow. So it's going to affect you. But it has a tremendous effect. And it's interesting to see it. And it explains so clearly why people are starting to think and feel the way they are. And what happens then as you come into the Aquarian age, you go into the silence of meditation. And you let the pool of your consciousness be very still until that pool starts to reflect that which is the moon, that which is the sun, that which is a star. Mystically I'm talking now, symbolically I'm talking. And as you go into this consciousness, this meditation, in a very stillness, in a very quietness, you rise above thought, that pool starts to reflect that star, and then the two start to rise to one another until finally that pool, which is your consciousness, becomes one which is with the star, which is that beacon from what you call God. God is nothing more than the activation of the right hemisphere of your brain. There all the time, always been there. And when you raise your consciousness from that lower solar plexus up to the higher mind, you're simply returning to the Father's house, going back to the Father's house like the prodigal son. You have to then understand that in Aquarius, the whole premise of Aquarius is you becoming one with your true self. Becoming one with the sacred word. What's the sacred word? The sacred word is Om. That's the sacred word. It's the center of the universe. I've told you, when you get done watching this show, take 2 fingers, put them in your ears, just sit there in absolute silence, and you'll hear Om inside of yourself. Brum, 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 brum. That's the generator. That's the power source within you. That is the center of your life. It's the same power source that's the center of the universe. And just as the sun returns as it leaves on Christmas Day, on December 25th, it is born out of Virgo, the Virgin, and makes its way up to the Father's house. In the same way, that energy from you must make its way back up to the Father's house for summer to come, for all new things to begin. And that happens when understanding that which is the word Om. Because that's the center of your universe as it is the center of the natural universe. And that's why you see the monks up in Tibet in these great ancient times, they'll sit and they'll chant for hours, Om. Why? Because they're putting themselves in a harmony. They're picking up the vibrations of the universe and they're putting themselves in an absolute harmony with the universe. Instead of being in a, give me a word, not a harmony, being in a, well, disharmony. Great. Well, clever, huh? Clever bunch we got here, disharmony. Dis-ease, there's a good word though. When you're out of harmony, what are you? You're not at ease, what do you have? You have dis-ease. Basically, that's the source of it, being out of harmony with the universe. So you learn to do that by coming into an awareness of what Aquarius is, coming into an awareness which you are. And here then we have Uranus, which is the great planet, which is the in charge, if you would say that, of Aquarius, making its way across the celestial heavens to rendezvous with Aquarius. In each constellation you have 3 decans. And they are 10 degrees each. And they make up the 30 degrees. And you have 30 degrees times 12 constellations. You have the 360 degrees of the zodiac. That 30 degrees is the reason that you have 30 days in a month. The 12 constellations is the reason you have 12 months in a year. The 7 days in the week is because they only knew there were 7 planets. They didn't know there was 9. All of these things that you are part of is because of the ancient zodiac and because of astrology. See? But the first decan that makes up the 30 degrees of Aquarius is one called Pisces Australis. Do you see that? If you look at that, let me see if I can get it for you, Al. You look at that, and you see Pisces Australis. There the Waterman is pouring out the water. And look at the fish. See? It's coming right down to the fish. That's Pisces Australis, the fish. Okay? Somebody said to me, that must be where the word Australia came from. I would assume. I don't really know, but I would imagine it did. This is the fish. Can you see something there? You know what's beautiful? The Apostle Paul said, you have no right not to understand the things that are unseen, because the things that are unseen are graphically spelled out with the things that are seen. Let me tell you the story of the salmon. Take a look at that, Pisces Australis. The salmon swims back to the place of its birth. Did you know that? And the salmon, in swimming back to the place of its birth, will actually swim up waterfalls and jump and leap and jump to get back to the place of its birth. And when it finally gets back to the place of its birth, it dies. But before it dies, it lays its eggs, it creates new life. And the old dies and the new is born, only when it returns to the place of its birth. See? And that's exactly what you're looking at there. That's you, the fish. See? What did Jesus say? I will teach you to be fishers of men. You're going to catch fish. You're going to catch people. In other words, you're going to bring people to swim back up to that holy place. It's exactly what that is. The waterman is pouring out the water. The fish, you and me, are the salmon swimming back up to the place of our birth. Where is the place of our birth? Back into the higher place. Now, if you don't understand that, then understand this. When you are born, or when you start to be formed, the colostrum of the brain is formed, and from the colostrum comes the chrism, which is the oil of life, which flows throughout your whole body, becomes that which is the oil in sexual intercourse and so forth and so on. That stuff is called chrism, which means Christ. And it flows into the solar plexus, and when you meditate, that chrism through the kundalini is forced back up to the Father's house. It's in other words, it is Christ returning to the Father's house. So then you return to the Father's house just as you see that fish. As the man is pouring down the pitcher of water, you take that and you swim through the galaxies of meditation back up to the Father's house, where you die to yourself. That's the crucifixion. And yet new life is formed in the exact same way that happens to the salmon. And there's a beautiful picture. You can just see, if that was a salmon, that fish is preparing to swim back up to its place of its birth and there be born again. Do you see that? And that's exactly what it is. All right? So that's the fish. There's a lot of people say, well, you're one of those nuts or something, evolution. Oh, let you believe that people came from the sea. They were all fish. Each one of you sitting in here, each one of you sitting watching television, at one time in the eons of your life, you were a little sperm. Swimming up with your little tail shaking, up on that little stream, fighting your way up like a salmon, going in all these little things, and all of a sudden, you made it. You made it back to the place. And what happened? Here you are. You were once a fish. Yes, you were. How many of you were not a fish? There's not one here who's got the nerve to raise his hand, because they know they were all a fish. So anybody says you came from the sea? Certainly you did. The ancient mystics actually believed that the spinal canal, which the fluid rolled down, is the Jordan River. That's the famous Jordan River of biblical terms, and we'll go into that too. In other words, the whole Bible then becomes an allegory of your body. And it makes so much sense, and it's so beautiful to understand how you cross the chilly Jordan River, how you cross that which is the Red Sea of your emotions to get to the promised land, which is the right hemisphere of the brain, how you are chosen people of God when you dwell at the east, which is the right hemisphere, and all of this kind of business. It all has to do with your consciousness. So there's Pisces Australis, the fish which is caught by the waterman. It's the higher truth of the mind. The fish swims home to the spawning pools of Christ, returning back up to the Father's house. Okay? So here then, if you think of that, at one time in the colostrum of your brain, when you were formed in a little itsy-teensy way up in the top of your brain, the colostrum let loose this chrism, which flowed and became the oil of life. And what are you doing now? You're returning back up to where you came from. You are swimming back up to the Father's house where you came from when you were actually created. Do you understand that? Hold it. Wait a minute. Why don't you look at the camera there? Come on, get on. She's got her cable bolt shirt on. Come on, Joan. Come on. What do you want to say?
Okay, but can't you take that a step further and that you go back to who you always were from the beginning of time?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. You go back to that which you were before you became who you are. Because what you're saying, I think, if I hear you right, is that each one of us identifies with the mask of our physical human frame, and when we start then swimming back up, we realize that this is not us, but the real true us lies deep within the eons of the higher mind. That's right. That's right. Because, there's that interest. Did you ever have a koan? I don't know how many of you, we never really practice a koan. Maybe some night in meditation we will. A koan is something you repeat over and over to yourself that has no answer, and you don't try to answer it. It serves the purpose of your mind starting to say, what is it? Your mind tries to answer it, and since it has no answer, your mind leaves you alone and you can sneak up to the higher realm there because your mind can't think. For instance, what is the sound of the left hand is a koan. So you don't try to answer it. Say, now what is the sound of the left hand? What's that? It's not a riddle. You just you ask yourself, what is the sound of the left hand? What is the sound of the left hand? And your mind is hearing this. And your mind immediately tries to respond to this, and you're able to escape because there is no answer to it. And they use these koans, and they're very effective. But one of the koans that's from the ancient East is, what was your face before you were born? What was your face before you were born? So you say, what was my face before I was born? What was my... And so your mind says, what is he talking about? What is his face before he was born? So your mind all of a sudden is trying to... You don't get into the thing of trying to figure it out or trying to answer it. You just say it because you're throwing this for your mind to play with while you run up to the upper room. So your mind becomes like a cat playing with a ball of twine while you get away and run up to the upper room into the nirvana. Because, it's so difficult much of the time your mind will not leave you alone. But that's very, very important, because we are a mask and yet we identify with this frame that we have. Yet how many thousands of bodies may you have had over the eons of time? Say. And of course, being in a Christian environment, you say, well, he's talking reincarnation. Well, I only do it because Jesus Christ did it. He's my teacher, and the guy said, do you see John the Baptist over there? Yeah, that's Elijah. What? And he said, if you have ears, listen to what I said. So in other words, he was saying to us that this Elijah, who had worked out his karmic whatever it was, now had reached a point where he could then come into the body of this great John the Baptist. And what would he do? He became the water god. John the Baptist was actually the water god, and we know that for a fact because if you trace baptism back to its origin, it comes from the ancient city of Chaldea and celebrated the god Ea, which is the water god. And now when you translate Ea through the Greek and so forth into English, it's John. So John was the water god. Say. And here then, as we begin to, understand all of these things and be able to come to grips with all of these things, we ourselves then realize, what do all of these things mean? Who do these people all represent? And who am I? What part do I play in this? So if indeed Elijah came and reincarnated into the body of John the Baptist, what about you? What about me? And who am I? See, who am I a reincarnation of? Who are you a reincarnation of? And what a beautiful thing, because as we gain in lives the understanding and then can serve humanity by coming and bringing forth. One of the beautiful things in John the Baptist, of course, was the fact that it actually was the temptation of the flesh of Salome which separated his head from his body. So don't look at it literally. Look at it mystically and understand what that's all about. See, he was cut away from the temptation of that flesh, and his head was cut off. Simply means any decapitation like that in mysticism means you have separated yourself from that which is the lower body and its anguish and its flesh and all of that kind of business. You don't look at that stuff literally. You don't look at it literally, other than that, because if it's a history book. You know how many thousands of books you can pick, people getting their heads cut off. You can go to the library, you can go to the Dalton Brothers. You're looking at spiritual stuff. When a guy gets his head cut, that's what happened, see, to Goliath. See? David was the child. He took 5 smooth stones, which means he controlled his 5 senses: sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing. He had to take 5 because say he only took 4. Maybe it would have been something he heard would have not allowed him to defeat the beast. He had to take the 5. He had to take control of his 5 senses, meditation. So he takes that one stone, which is the pineal gland of the brain, whacks it. Where does he hit the beast? Right in the forehead, which means consciousness. And the first thing he does when he overwhelms the consciousness, when he overwhelms the beast, he goes up with this 2-edged sword and whack-o, cuts the beast's head off. He is now separated the beast from the body, and he is no longer a part of that consciousness. So that's all. The story of David and Goliath usually winds up in a Sunday school class with Noah's Ark, and they are both eminent stories of psychology and about the human mind. Okay? So Pisces Australis then becomes the fish caught in the water, and he will swim up like the salmon back up to the Father's house. Let's take a look at the second decon. And this is one that many of you who have been around a while, in the old days they used to have a gasoline called Tidal, and they had the red flying red horse. I don't know if you may have seen it on some of the signs, but that is called Pegasus. P-E-G-A-S-U-S. Pegasus, the flying horse, okay? Now there's an interesting story about Pegasus. How many of you ever heard of Medusa? You know who Medusa is? Okay. Medusa is the woman, if you would, whose hair was serpents, snakes. Ah! Now, many of us have found ourselves to be Medusa. How many times in your life have you had serpents coming out of your head? Ah! You know, berserk! You know, I mean, really. Every time I go into that room and there's the one machine's copying this, the other machine's copying this, the cat sitting on a duplicator, knocking everything out of. There's serpents coming out of my head. You know, I mean, it is. Whoa, it's terrible. So what happens with Medusa is her head is cut off. And guess who comes flying out of her neck? Pegasus. Sure. What's that mean? Once all of that awful serpent type of consciousness is cut away through meditation, then that which is the horse, wisdom, can ascend from you up to the higher realms of God consciousness. See? And that's the myth of Medusa, is that, see, that all the time that each one of you have within you that wisdom which can ascend up to God, but it can't get out because of the consciousness of the snakes. All of our thoughts, all of those snakes represent thought. All of that crazy stuff that goes crawling throughout our head that gets us all screwed up. But when that's cut off, wow, the horse is set free. Wisdom rises up to the higher place. That is Pegasus. And the bright star, you see at the neck of the horse, there's a bright star there. And it's called Markeb. And that means returning from afar. That's Aquarius. See, this is the second coming of Aquarius, my friends. It's the second coming of Christ. And here comes this beautiful wisdom, which now is able to rise to the higher realms of consciousness, Pegasus, coming from afar. There's a continuance of the Waterman theme here, because you see the nose of the horse, there's a star called Inif, E-N-I-F. And it means the water. It means the water. So the wisdom of the higher nature is the overflowing truth by which we swim to the bosom of Christ consciousness. Did you show them Pegasus on the television, Joan? Okay, thank you. Okay. See, what do you see here? This rising of the water, see, raising yourself to the top via the water of Aquarius is the same as Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark is simply a center of your mind. It's a holy safety place in your mind where you take two of every kind. That means the duality of your nature. All the creeping and crawling things are our lower elements of our mind. The domestic things are the, I got to go to the store. The flying things are the spiritual aspects, the wild things, all of this stuff you take in, it's all part of your personality, and you're always taking them in with you. But the point is, take them to the higher consciousness. Put them in that ark. See, because in the ark, when they built the ark, there's only one place for you to look. There's only one window in the ark, and it's in the ceiling. That means you have to look up. You can't look out. And when the storm comes raging against you, what do? First thing you send out is a raven. Oi, Volta already. What is this? No way out. I mean, this is terrible. What am I going to do? The whole thing's coming down. I knew I shouldn't have gotten involved with this. This is turning out to be a fakakta. I don't want no more of this. Get out of this, and all of this stuff is happening. Is this true? That's a raven. And then, as you go deeper into meditation, you start to feel something calming, and you send a dove. And finally, the dove comes back with an olive branch in its beak. Peace. And what happens then is when finally your ark comes to rest, the same storm that tried to hurt you and destroy you has actually lifted you to the mountaintop. There you are. It is an interesting thing. Right after Noah gets done with his ark deal, you know the first thing he does? Gets stewed. The guy goes out and gets stoned. Flat out drunk. But you see, with the Bible, up in the mountain cave, he's stoned. But now, the average person looks at this and says, what kind of a Christian is this? You know, of course, Christians never read that part. They tell you about Noah's Ark. They don't tell the kids in the school that they got Noah's Ark pictures. And here come the animals, 2 by 2. But they don't tell you that this guy got stoned and took his clothes off and was laying in the middle of the cave to celebrate this great godliness of him, you know. Well, what's it mean? He wasn't. It doesn't mean, you know, he was so grateful to God that he went out, you know, got down to the local bar. It means that he was drunk, spiritually. He was intoxicated with this new wine. And it said that one of his sons, which means an offspring of your mind, looked at him laying in his nakedness and said, you no good drunken. Boom. It's just a negativity. You come through all of these things. You have placed yourself in the ark. You've overcome the trouble. You've overcome all of the stress that was coming against you. Yet there'll be a part of your mind that'll say, it's a lot of nonsense. That would have happened anyhow. The heck you're going down here with those wackos and sitting on the floor. What are you, a screwball? There's always a part, as one of your sons will always say that. That means a part of your mind will say it. But then 2 of his other sons came in. And you know what, those 2 other sons, they didn't look at his nakedness. They didn't look at his shortcomings. They backed in with this covering and they laid it over him and they walked out. See? In other words, wow, the covering of God. I will place the covering of God on this. This is holy, see? It's a beautiful story. But you know, if you read these stories literally, it's cuckoo. I mean, his Bible is a whacked out book. If you were to write these stories that are in the Bible and go outside, you would get banned. They would ban you. The 2 Live Crew is nothing compared to this stuff in the Bible. I'm telling you this. There's a story of a guy in the Bible, and he's got this girlfriend, and all of these guys are coming after him. So he takes the girl, throws her out, and he says, go on, boys, have a good time. So they go after her all night long. She comes crawling up to the front steps in the morning. The guy drags her by the head of the hair, pulls her in, beats her over the head, and then chops her up in 12 equal parts and sends one to each of the 12. It's mysticism. It's all mysticism. But I mean, this is some of the stuff. Of course, you remember the story about the guy that's he's fighting the war and he sees the tent and there's little Salome in front of the tent. You know, doo 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 doo. Come on in, Boris. You know, and here he comes staggering. These guys are after him. You know, and he says, little Salome, oh, you're such, and she's got her little thing on, you know, and she's doing the 7 veils and all of this stuff. So this guy, she says, why don't you put your head down and sleep, you sweet little hunk. And this guy lays down, and while he's sleeping, this lady takes a tent peg, wacko, and pegs his head right to the floor, right through the temple. All mysticism. What I'm trying to say to you, why don't some of the pastors read these stories on Sunday morning to their congregation? Have you ever read the Song of Songs in the Bible? Your breasts are like 2 jumping gazelles. Did you ever hear that one? It's in the Bible. Yes, it is. It's in the Bible. Certainly it is. It's mysticism. It's symbolic language. Spiritualism. Say. But when you are afraid of it because of what it says, then you're saying that the Bible even has to be censored. I can't read this in front of the kids. See? Yes, you can. It's all symbolism. It's mysticism. And you explain what these things are, you know. And you don't take them literally. And I think that's probably why the Bible is filled with so much almost pornography. The violence of it is bizarre. You know, so many people say, what kind of a God tells Aaron or Joshua, look at Joshua, taking the town isn't enough. I want you to go back in there and kill every man, every woman, every child. Put them to the sword. And then take all the stuff out. Take all the gold out. Go out and kill all the kids and chop them up. That's God telling, this is God telling Joshua. Well, that's horrible. A lot of people can't get through the Bible because of that. Say, oh, the heck with that. I don't need this. What's he saying? He's saying, once you enter into the city, once you enter into that which is the inner consciousness, all of those children, all of those things which are the offsprings of your old ways, kill them. All of those women, all of those parts of your emotional nature that have messed you up, kill them. All of those men, all of those things that came from your mind, kill them. And when they're dead, when those old desires, when the offsprings of your mind are all dead, when those emotions are dead because of taking the city, going into meditation, then you can take all the treasure out, all the gold, all of that which is God within you. But you'll never be able to do it unless you kill the kids, kill the women, kill the men. Destroy that which is the old mind, destroy that which is the old emotions, destroy that which is all the old offsprings of the old ways. Jesus says wisdom is known by her children. See, that's what he would say today. He said, go out and kill the children today. But he's not saying kill physical human being children. He's saying kill all the offsprings of this old way, which has teenagers committing suicide, which drops bombs on one another, which has the old people put away in homes, and all of these horrible things, the violence and the drugs and all of the stuff that we've been into, and wars and wars and wars. Those are the children. Those are the offsprings of our old ways. He said, kill the children. Kill the women, kill the emotions out, kill the men, kill those things which have come out of your mind, and come and take the gold, take that which is God, and find a new way. So when you understand, then, the mystical application of these things, they're magnificent. But they are deliberately written in this bizarre way, because if you're not willing to approach them mystically, you're never going to find out. That's exactly what Jesus said. They look and look, but they don't say. They listen and listen, but they don't understand. Okay? So that's basically Pegasus, the winged horse, and that's what the ancients understood. Truth which is above that which is wisdom, see? And here's the final deacon in Aquarius, and I think maybe if you turn it upside down, I guess, I don't know, it looks like he's on his way down. It looks like it's flying over the Barnegat Bay during November and he got hit by some buckshot or something. But anyhow, you want to show that one, John? This one is called Cygnus the Swan. Cygnus the Swan. You know, it's an interesting thing. Somebody told me now, you know, like a baby dog is called what? Come on, right in. The first one that knows is a puppy. I'm going to give you a free something or other. Certainly it's a puppy, a baby dog. It's a puppy. Say puppy. Puppy. So, isn't great? Baby cat is a? I was going to say pussy cat. Baby cat is a kitten. A baby swan is a cygnet. See it? Cygnet. C-Y-G-N-E-T. Somebody told me that. I didn't make that up, and that's I just threw that in. No extra charge for that. Okay. What? It is true. What would you repeat that, please? You're going to have these people.
Is that really true?
Is that real? Would I tell you something that's not really true? No, that's really true. Cygnet is a baby swan. The swan is flying in mid-heaven, as you can see. But the swan, though it flies, is of the earth, and it's of the water. There's a beautiful star in the swan, which you can see right in the center. It's called Deneb, which means flying swiftly. See? And the star in the body, which is S-A-D-R, completes the zodiacal story. It means who returns. Listen to this. Now you tell us, come on, let's get it. And there's only a handful of people because there's a lot, but get excited about it. You know what that star means? What's happening right now? Aquarius. Okay? Uranus is coming back. The new age is going to commence in 19 years. That star, which is S-A-D-R, means, listen to this, who returns as in a circle. I mean, the swan is coming back. Okay? With Aquarius. The swan is coming back. Beautiful. Beautiful. See, the swan to return again for the second coming of Aquarius, which is the second coming of Christ, which all the Christians are afraid to look at, which they've been praying for all of their lives. Here it comes, and they turn the other way. Was the Bhagwan, the guru, said something. He was great. He says, you know, the Jews waited for 4,000 years for the Messiah to come, and when he came, they killed him and gave the business to the Italians. Same thing. Here he comes again. And they're looking another way. Because they were looking for a physical man. They're looking for a physical man riding a physical white horse across the sky. That's what they're looking for. Say, what did I tell you before? Remember the horse Pegasus? A horse means wisdom. A white horse means wisdom which comes from the higher divine consciousness. Say. And who said that he would not come back so to be seen? Jesus Christ. Luke 17:20. The kingdom does not come with observation. It's within you. You have to see the kingdom inside of you. Say. There's much comment in the Eastern teachings. And you know, Eastern thought and philosophy and teaching is so beautiful. There's much comment in the ancient East of the majestic swan. In the Sadabra of Krishna, the swan dwelling in the light doubtless is the sun. The swan dwelling in the light doubtless is the swan. Here's another one from what's called the Dynamopeda. And this defines the Aquarian age as beautiful as I ever heard it. Listen to this one, Joan. The swans go on the path of the sun. They go by their magical power. The wise are led out of this world when they have conquered Mara and his train and have followed the swan. Isn't that beautiful? You say, who? They have conquered who? Mara. Do you remember when Jesus was born? He was born to Mary, and do you know that her name actually was Mara? And do you know what Mara is? Mara means bitter. In the middle of this bitterness of your mind and my mind is a place of virgin womb where he who is the Savior will come forth. Do you know that word Mara is interesting? In Hindu, and you can look this up in any of your local Hindu stores, in Hindu, the word for devil is Mara. Isn't that interesting? And Mary's name was Mara. Okay? And here then, in the midst of all of this Mara, or evil, as each one of us have loaded in our lower mind, comes the birth of this which is new. I'll show you something. If you go with me to Mara, which means bitter, look in page 60 of your little Bibles. Go to Exodus 15. It's the second book of the Bible, Exodus 15. I want to show you something very interesting and how this word Mara is used. All right? Now here you've got, watch what you've got. You've got Moses leading the children of Israel across the desert, okay? Exodus 15 is right at the beginning of your book. It's the second book. If you look in the very beginning of your book at page 60, okay, just go right to page 60 and you'll be right where I'm at, okay? Now, I want to set it up for you. Here is, now you remember the Hindu word for devil is Mara, okay? Here is Moses leading the children of Israel across the desert. Nothing to drink. Now remember the word Mara means bitter. That was the name Mary of which Jesus was born, and that comes out of mysticism. Look at Exodus 15. You're with me now on page 60. Okay, now let's go to page 20, verse 22. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. They went out into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Mara, they could not drink of the waters of Mara, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Mara. Do you see that? Okay, that's the name of the Hindu name for devil, Mara. Okay, but interestingly enough, the waters were bitter. How did they overcome the bitterness of the waters? Okay, now what you're looking at, folks, you may be studying a Bible, but you're looking at pure mythology. Okay, this is pure mythology. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It means it happens. Don't literalize it. It's a story about consciousness and inside of your mind, and it's given a storyline. Okay, watch this one. Exodus 15:27. Now they got this Mara, and they came to Elim, where there were how many wells of water? 12 wells of water. You see that? Okay, that's Exodus 15:23. There were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. You know how many that is? 70. Right again, you have the 7, which is the 7 constellations, and you have the 12 signs of the zodiac, and you have the water and so forth and so on. And they encamped there by the waters, and where the heck am I here? I wonder if what is it? Okay. And they came to by the waters. Okay. I'm looking for the place where they had to I don't see it here. I'm a little corporate. But they came to that. They came to Elim and they found 12 wells of water. What had happened in another story in the Bible covering this is they took a tree. Is that it? All right, let's start again. Let's pretend I knew what I was talking about, okay? Now, if you go right from verse 23 over to verse 25, you'll see I had this so well prepared. When the people murmured in verse 24, "What shall we drink?" because the water was bitter. And he cried unto the Lord showed him a tree, which when he cast it into the water was made sweet, and he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. Okay, what happened there was that which is the tree is that inner self. That which is the tree of life. That's what Jesus said. He that overcomes will I give to the eat of the tree of life. That tree is upon which the fruit of the Spirit grows. That tree is that which you, as a branch, affix yourself to when you go into meditation. So here when you have that which is the bitterness within you, you then take that which is the tree of life, or that which is the part of consciousness, that higher realm of consciousness upon which the boughs, that fruit grows, and you put that tree into the water, and the water becomes sweet. And then we can go back to 27. I got ahead of myself and got confused. But if you go down to 27, you see there were 12 wells of water, 70 palm trees, which, as I said, goes back to the zodiacal signs again. But here then, also, you find that word Mara in the same way, by adapting that which was the tree of life, that which is the Christ, when that is placed in the center of that bitterness, the water becomes sweet. And that's what we're talking about here. In the bitterness of our lives, in the bitterness of our own minds, when we find that tree, when we find that holy place within us, which is signified through meditation, the water becomes sweet. You know, in the Rig Veda, which is an Eastern book, it says, in the air, which is the higher mind, he is the swan of the sun. So then we've covered the great age of Aquarius, bringing us to new life, okay? He pours forth his spirit, by which we, the fish, Pisces Australis, swim up that water to the higher place, back to the Father's house. Where the winged horde Pegasus, upon being set free from the Medusa head of the serpents and all of the screaming thoughts, is able to raise itself and climb back up into the heaven. Where Cygnus, the glorious swan, then silently rises from the earth to move up into the higher realms. The consciousness of all mankind are on the verge of a great revolution of love. And the interesting and great part is you can go from this place, or you can shut this tape off, you can go to a planetarium, you can get a book on astronomy, and you can see that it's happening right now as we sit here. In other words, everything that the book is talking about, everything the Bible talked about, the wedding and all of these things, it's all coming to pass right now in front of us during this age of Aquarius. The second coming of Jesus Christ. You say, well, how could I say it's the second coming of Jesus Christ? And then we're done, because I kept you a long time and it's random. How can I say the second coming of Jesus Christ? Look at Luke. I want you to do something before you leave here. Now, go with me to page 83 in your little Bibles in the New Testament, all the way to the end of the book. Now, not 83 in the Old Testament. Go to the other end of the book, page 83, and look at the book of Luke. Okay? That's it. Page 83 in the New Testament, the book of Luke. And I want you, as you're looking and you're reading that, I want you to look at the picture of the Aquarius, the man with the pitcher of water. And let's look at Luke verse 22, okay? Luke verse 22. And we'll go to chapter 10. You're on page 83, you got that covered? All right, now take a look at the man with the pitcher of water, Aquarius. He's the very first page that we started with tonight, okay? Luke 22:10. Behold, when you enter into the city, that means consciousness, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Now look at that. Joan, show them that. Show them that picture. Go here. Show them this picture. Look at that. And you folks at television, let me read that again, and you look at that. When you enter into the city, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house. What house? The Aquarian house. Follow him into the house of Aquarius. Follow him now. Don't follow a church. Don't follow this church. Don't follow this me. Don't follow any preacher. Don't follow any organization. Don't get involved with anybody. Don't join anything. Follow him. In other words, set your sights, and that was the Aquarian. Allow him to pour forth down upon you that new spirit which comes from the vibrations of Uranus molding itself into Aquarius and setting the whole universe ablaze with spirit. Follow him. Follow him. And look what happens in verse 12. And he shall show you a large upper room furnished. There make ready. What is that? The large upper room made furnished is the 90% of your mind that you've never touched. It's been empty. Now furnish it. Use it. You've only used 10% of your brain. The best of us is 90% ignorant. So furnish that large upper room, and you furnish that large upper room with the right side by shutting down that which is the left side when you take no thought in meditation. And chanting Om or Nam Myoho Renge Kyo or listening to whatever these sounds, it'll do it for you. Saying a koan, as we talked about, you raise yourself by shutting down the left side, and when you shut down the left side, the doors to the right side swing open. That's the large upper room unfurnished, where we've never, ever, ever gone before. And when we enter into that room, Jesus Christ says, that's where I will meet you. That's the Passover story. See? And you know, sometimes, you know, let's look at something. You're at Luke 22:10. Okay? And there Jesus Christ said, when you see the man carrying that pitcher of water, look at Luke 22:16. You're right there. For I will not any more eat thereof. I'm not going to do this again, he said, until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of God. Do you see that? How many, each one of you see that? What did Jesus say? Look, fellas. I know he's talking mystically. And he's saying, I'm telling you something. You can read about it. You got a Bible. You can read about it. I'm telling you, when the man with the pitcher of water, Aquarius, comes, you go to that upper room. You follow him into the house of Aquarius. Go to that upper room. He'll show you a large room unfurnished. That's the right hemisphere of your brain. You prepare that room, okay? And then he backs off and he says, I'm going to tell you something. He shows it to you right there. I will not be involved in this again until it's fulfilled in the kingdom of God. All right? Now you with me? Here's the last scripture and we're done tonight. Come with me then to page 77. You're on page 83 now. You only got to go a few back. Go with me to Luke 17. Okay? Luke 17. Overall, that's fine. That's fine. Luke 17. Lo, in other words, or here it is, the kingdom of God is within you. Do you see how important that is? He has showed you where the large upper room is. He has said to watch the man with the pitcher of water, Aquarius, and he's made the statement that I will not be involved in this again until it's fulfilled in the kingdom of God. In other words, I will not take part in any of this stuff until I meet you in that large upper room. Until you and I sit in that large upper room, and then I will fulfill that Passover in the kingdom of God within you. Amen. That jumped out of what? Shut up. That wasn't the videotape. Okay. I should have missed that. That's a good show. Listen, thank you very much for sharing this zodiac teaching with us tonight. We're going to starting next week here, covering Uranus and how it affects mankind, how it will affect people on this earth, which it already is doing, and how it affects you. You might find out which sign you were born under. Now, we're not doing any fortune telling or anything. I'm just telling you, scientifically based, what it means and what that star you're under means, and how the two personalities react. What I want you to consider doing